Hi, so I'm really Beacom. And I'm Taub. I went to North Korea in May 2012, so almost exactly a year ago. Actually, in 2 days it will be 1 year. And basically I was living in China at the time, and I met a guy who ran a company that ran tours to North Korea. And so I jumped at the opportunity to go. I went to North Korea in 2010. I went with United World Colleges. They had never had a student from North Korea before, and that was considered the final frontier. And so our school had an ambassadorial trip every single year, and I was fortunate enough to go on that trip. So today we're going to, because North Korea has a very odd position in the national media, we're going to try and demystify North Korea through the experiences that we had, our personal experiences. So a lot of people think of North Korea as the propaganda. This was taken off Korean Central News Agency website a few days ago. And obviously this depicts North Korea destroying the US Capitol. But in reality, North Korea is much more than that. And we also do not portray them accurately in the media, just as they do not portray the West accurately in the media. Right, so on our side of the equation, of course, articles from The Onion are satirical and are meant to mock, and that's relatively innocuous. But when you look at even our mainstream media, it seems like we replace a lack of information from North Korea with speculative or rather inappropriate coverage. So here's some examples here. This picture on the right, actually, pictures like these are used to show that North Korean military capabilities are much less than what they claim to be. But these sort of pictures are, I've been to places like these, and these sort of pictures are of old museums. And obviously, journalists that go to North Korea do not get to actually see North Korean military equipment, so they just put in these pictures instead. And then on a more individual level, Google Maps just opened up North Korea to be mapped through crowdsourcing, and so people have been given the opportunity to rate different things in North Korea. And people started rating the gulags in North Korea. And this person here wrote that our daily entertainment was watching someone be publicly shot, but the guards accidentally killed all of them. And then I would highly recommend this place. And this sort of coverage really isn't helpful to the crisis, and really just furthers a disconnect between what we know about North Korea and how we can possibly approach the conflict. So in addition to inappropriate comments made by individuals, we also have a systematic problem. The Daily Mail is known to be a rag if you live in England or familiar with England. However, it is the main source of news for many, many people. And this kind of coverage is not only inappropriate, but also willfully false. So, for example, Simon Parry, the journalist who went here, stayed at the Yonggakdo Hotel, which is the place that Billy and I both stayed, which is located on an island in the middle of the river that runs through Pyongyang. And he claimed to run off the island into Pyongyang before dawn and go to this hotel called the Ryogong Hotel, which has been being built. It has been being built since 1987, and basically the funds have dried up. So he claimed to go inside and sneak inside. So his story is very improbable. He's probably lying. But this, obviously, this is not what happens when you go to North Korea. Soldiers don't actually watch you like that, although you are watched. And this is actually a YouTube video that purports to show the Ryugyong Hotel. This is the Yonggakdo Hotel lobby. We have both been here, and the journalist has been here as well. So in addition to just trying to spin a tale that is almost certainly false, he intentionally misled us, misled the population who read this article with a YouTube video. And in addition, he claims that in North Korea, Pyongyang is so poor that it cannot even light up its own streets at night. This is a photo I took out my window last May. This is Pyongyang. Having said that, the situation in Pyongyang is rather different from everywhere else in North Korea. this is the showcase capital.
Right, so these are two additional photographs of the Pyongyang skyline from the hotel that we stayed in. As you can see, Pyongyang is a real city with a couple million people, and hopefully through this presentation we'll show a more human side to the situation in Pyongyang. So of course it's impossible to talk about daily life in North Korea without at least discussing how much North Koreans' daily life is intertwined with the political fervor there. This is a picture of the mass games, which some of you may have heard about. The mass games essentially are, imagine the Beijing Olympics times 10 that happen every single year without any, the Beijing Olympics opening ceremony times 10 with absolutely no automation and happens every single year. So it's very important, and all children compete to try and perform in the mass games as it happens every year. And it really demonstrated to me the way that the daily lives of North Koreans are so intertwined with the party and the rhetoric of the party. So definitely people's ambitions are also therefore tied to the state. I also found it interesting how the incentive structure, as you could imagine in a communist country, is completely different than it would be in a capitalist society like ours. For example, if you do well at work, you don't receive a bigger paycheck. You might receive a nicer house if you're really moving up and are loyal to the party, or maybe a flat screen TV if you're near the top again. And this picture here is of girls at the Children's Palace performing, and I'd never seen such young children perform with such discipline, and it was an example of, this is a form of incentive, because these girls, along with their families, get to move to Pyongyang and live a more comfortable life away from the sort of malnutrition that they may experience in other parts of the country. So the incentive structure, again, there is extremely different and feeds right into the party. I think one way maybe to think about North Korea is as a place almost stuck back in time. So if you go to post-Soviet bloc countries, you might see that or even China, you might see that the architecture is very sort of 1980s Soviet. But in North Korea, it's that, but also the rhetoric and the way that daily life exists. So here, this is a picture of the metro, and these trains are actually from East Germany. If you get caught in the doors, they don't open again. It was interesting to see that, and you always get the sense that all the technology essentially ended when the Soviet Union aid ended. So most of the country looks quite a bit like this. But at the same time, I also saw riding the metro is a daily life thing that everyone does, and that real people do ride the metro in Pyongyang. But of course, the portraits of the leaders always are visible. Another side that really showed the more daily life and maybe normal aspects of North Korea was the emphasis on education there. Like other communist states, North Korea highly treasures education, and where the resources are available, a lot of it is directed towards education. So people will go to school as long as will go to compulsory education as long as they may here, and will go to college. Many people will learn English, strangely, even though they'll never have an opportunity to use it. But again, Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il look on.
And just sort of an aside, going back to education for a second, I had a guide who was maybe a 23 or 24-year-old, and she clearly had a chip on her shoulder about not getting into North Korea's top university, which was Kim Il-sung University. She went to the tourism school. She had an older sister who did get into Kim Il-sung University, and she just kept on bringing it up. And I'm sure that we at Princeton can relate to the idea of like fierce competition for university places. And also I just want to emphasize again, what we're talking about regarding education is the situation in the capital, Pyongyang. And yeah, so a lot of people think that when you go to North Korea, you're shown only certain things and everything is staged. And in some respects, like, you are shown things that intentionally make the regime look good or make the people look happy. But people are genuinely happy some of the time. I mean, this was a May Day festival where everyone was dancing. in a public park. These were not stooges of the regime, they were real people. And as you can see, it's quite a conservative country. Women will dance with women, and men will dance with men unless they're married. And this is a picture that really grabbed hold of me. I took this picture because I saw this young child, once again, at a May Day picnic with a toy gun. And I thought, wow, what a militarized country. But then I realized there are so many pictures of me, and my parents are actually here, so they know that this is true. When I'm walking around with a toy gun, and they're looking on. So, like, really there's no difference. Like, boys will be boys, regardless of where you live. And yeah, this is a pavilion, and every foreigner I know who's gone to North Korea has a picture at this pavilion with people dancing. So, Billy and I wondered whether this was staged. It doesn't seem like a good use of resources, considering the fact that only 2,400 to 4,000 tourists per year go to North Korea. So it seems like a huge waste. They're constantly there waiting for tourists to show up. And something that sort of confirmed this thought is this man right here. This man has a protein deficiency, as you can see, which is evidence of the hunger problem in North Korea. All these pictures are pictures that we have taken ourselves. So obviously, if the regime were controlling who shows up at this pavilion in Pyongyang, controls who gets to dance where, then this man wouldn't be there in front of us, because it is evidence of some very horrible things going on in North Korea.
So on my side, I had an experience that I had that showed the very surreal mix of people living their normal lives with the politicization. There was when I went to Mount Paektu, which is a very important place for North Koreans. It's on the border for North Koreans. It's on the border with China. It's a lake in a volcano crater, and according to the state, Kim Il-sung sort of sprang out of here and found his parents. So people all across the country, it's a little bit vague, but that's kind of how it was explained to me. Or like an essence or something that came from the lake, I'm not really sure. So people all over the country are expected to make a pilgrimage at some point in their life to Mount Paektu, and people will hike from the southernmost tip of the country all the way up to Mount Paektu. So it was very important. Finding these people, most of them were doing military service at the time, finding these people out at Mount Paektu at a moment in their life that they would consider quite important was really interesting. And these were obviously people who weren't trained to interact with foreigners or to see foreigners. Actually, going to this location is not usually open to foreigners. It was something special I did because of the ambassadorial trip. It was, a lot of them looked at us with a lot of suspicion because obviously they had heard that we were this is a quote, the foreign warmongering bastards. As a lot of them had studied English before, and this was really the first opportunity I probably will ever be able to use it, we started to interact with them and we took pictures with them and had quite a bit of fun and saw a real human connection there, despite the obvious ideological and the differences in perspective.
So what do we want you to take away from this? Well, there are 40-some million people living in South Korea and 23 million people living in North Korea. Perhaps North Korea doesn't actually have missiles capable of delivering nukes to the US or to Tokyo or even to Seoul. However, in the event of war, millions would die in a very short amount of time because of conventional weaponry. And basically, we just want to remind everyone that North Koreans are real people with real ambitions and real thoughts. They have obviously a very different perspective and they're very different people, but they exist and they look just like this. This is a couple girls that I saw at the May Day Festival. And I think it's a pretty, regardless of your Obviously, I think we all have a similar stance on what's going on in North Korea, and that the human rights abuses obviously need to stop. But I think it would be uncontroversial to say that these girls deserve a chance to grow up in a world without war and without famine.